again, a couple of notes to share with you today. Just to start off, that the Secretary General learned with profound sadness about the untimely passing yesterday of Amadou Coulibaly, the Prime Minister of Côte D'Ivoire. During his tenure, Mr. Coulibaly led important reforms enhancing Côte d'Ivoire's development. The Secretary General, on behalf of the United Nations, extends his heartfelt condolences to the families and loved one of Mr. Gon Coulibaly, as well as to the government and people of Côte d'Ivoire. And you will have seen that this morning we issued the Secretary General's policy brief on the impact of COVID-19 on Latin America and the Caribbean. In a video message, the Secretary General said that in a context of already gaping inequalities, high levels of informal labor, and fragmented health services, many people in the region are being hit hard by the pandemic. In particular, women, older persons, persons with disabilities, indigenous peoples, and refugees and migrants are being impacted at a higher rate. The Secretary General called for a rescue and recovery package for the region, equivalent to more than 10% of the global economy. The Secretary General also stressed that the root causes of inequality, political instability, and displacement must be addressed at a time when too many citizens feel excluded. The brief provides short-term recommendations to governments as well as long-term policies to build back better. It's, of course, online. This morning, he also delivered remarks at the UN Water High-Level Political Forum special event to launch the Global Accelerator Framework for Sustainable Development Goal 6. That's the one on water and sanitation. The Secretary General said that water is threatened by the twin threats of increased global demand and the degradation of water sources due to climate change, pollution, and other threats. The Secretary General also noted that water and sanitation are key to fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, as hand washing with soap is one of the most effective ways to limit the spread of the virus. Yet 3 billion people around the world, that's almost 40% of the world's population, lack basic hand washing facilities at home. In addition, the HLPF held two sessions. This morning held two official sessions. The first one focused on the topic of bolstering local action to control the pandemic and accelerate implementation. It addressed how COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the important role of local governments as the provider of services closest to the people. The second session examined the principles of leaving no one behind in eradicating poverty and towards the 2030 agenda. And this afternoon, the forum will focus on mobilizing international solidarity, accelerating action, and embarking on new pathways to realize the 2030 agenda and respond to the COVID-19 in African countries, least developed countries, and landlocked developing countries. This morning, the Secretary General also delivered remarks via video message that was recorded to the International Energy Agency's Clean Energy Transmission Summit. He said that as countries design and implement recovery plans from the pandemic, they need to invest in better, more sustainable future. This means investing in renewable energy, which is reliable, clean, and economically smart. It is vital that we bring sharper focus on the need to transition away from fossil fuels and towards a clean energy future, a future that protects people and planet and promotes prosperity, he said. The Secretary General also noted that the new research on the G20 recovery packages released this week show that twice as much recovery money, that's taxpayers' money, has been spent on fossil fuels as clean energy. Let us commit to no new coal today and to end all external financing of coal in the developing world. Coal has no place in COVID-19 recovery plans, the Secretary General underscored. He urged all leaders to choose the clean energy route for three vital reasons: health, science, and economics. And this Saturday, as you may recall, at 11 July, it is the 25th anniversary of the Srebrenica genocide. An official commemoration will be held, and officials from abroad will participate through pre-recorded video addresses. In his video message, the Secretary General said that the Srebrenica genocide was the worst atrocity crime on European soil since the Second World War. He notes that 25 years later, we pay tribute to the thousands of brutally murdered and to pledge to never forget them. The Secretary General said that a quarter century ago, the United Nations and the international community failed the people of Srebrenica. For him, confronting that past is a vital step for rebuilding trust and reconciliation and must be underpinned by mutual empathy and understanding. The Secretary General stressed that on this somber anniversary, we are reminded that peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina is still fragile. He warns that we cannot let up on working towards genuine reconciliation and that we owe it to the victims of the Srebrenica genocide, the survivors, and the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and to all humanity. Details of the event and the Secretary General's messages have been shared with you. And the Security Council this morning, Mohamed Chambas, the head of the UN Office for West Africa and the Sahel, said that attacks by violent extremists and intercommunal violence have continued to undermine peace and security in the region, particularly in the Sahel and the Lake Chad Basin. While national and multinational forces intensified counterterrorism operations, he added, some communities have resorted to organized groups, self-defense militias for protection. As a result, Mr. Chambas said, human rights groups have raised concerns over alleged abuses by both self-defense groups and security forces. He told council members that support and coordination amongst various initiatives aimed at addressing security, humanitarian development challenges in the region is crucial. We shared his words with you, and yesterday evening, as you will have seen, the council members failed to pass a resolution on the border crossings in Syria due to an insufficient number of positive votes. Remaining in Syria, our humanitarian colleagues remain concerned about the impact of the virus of the people across Syria. To date, the Syrian Ministry of Health has confirmed 14 deaths and 372 cases of the virus, including 18 members of the Ministry of Health. The UN Relief and Works Agency in Syria has confirmed the first case of COVID-19 among Palestinian refugees in Syria, who are among already the most vulnerable in the country. 5 Palestinian refugees in Damascus and rural Damascus have been confirmed to have the virus. The fragile health system throughout the country, including severe shortages of qualified medical personnel, underscores the need for sustained humanitarian support to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And you've been asked for updates from Martin Griffiths on Yemen. I can tell you that the special envoy of the Secretary General has been negotiating with the government of Yemen and Ansar Allah the text of the joint declaration, and he's been receiving comments and feedback over several rounds of discussions. Once the parties agree on a text, the joint declaration will commit the parties to a nationwide ceasefire, critical economic and humanitarian measures, and the resumption of the political process. The Secretary General reiterates his full confidence in his special envoy, and he calls on the parties to continue engaging constructively with him and with the negotiations process. And in the Central African Republic, the joint military operation with the country's armed forces against combatants from the 3R movement continues in the northwest. On Tuesday, peacekeepers responded to a new attack by 3R near Deze in the Nanamambere prefecture. The mission reports that a UN vehicle sustained significant damage, but no casualties were reported following the attack. The mission is deploying additional peacekeepers to the area. They also condemn the attacks and broader actions by the 3R, which are impeding humanitarian access to hundreds of people who have fled. The mission also noted that 3R leader Siddiqui Abbas issued a communique yesterday announcing the cessation of hostilities and requesting the guarantors, facilitators of the political agreement to facilitate dialogue with the government to find an adequate solution to this crisis. And today is the Independence Day in South Sudan. Marking the country's 9th anniversary, the Secretary General's Special Representative, David Shearer, said we should take opportunity to remember the immense suffering caused by the long-running civil war. He said that following the threat posed by COVID-19, now more than ever, we need the government and people of South Sudan to come together in unity and peace to respond to this new threat to this young country. And in Benin, which has more than 1,200 confirmed COVID cases, including more than 300 people having recovered and more than 20 passed away, the UN team, led by the resident coordinator, Siaka Coulibaly, has been working closely with the government to support health and socioeconomic response to the pandemic. We have provided nearly $750,000 worth of equipment, such as personal protective devices, hand washing stations, and soap, to hospitals and schools across Benin. The UN also is supporting the government with creating digital remote learning solutions to strengthen physical distancing and measures to reduce the spread of infection. Staying on the African continent, UNHCR and the World Food Programme today jointly warned that the funding shortages, conflict and disasters, as well as supply chain challenges, rising food prices and loss of income due to COVID-19 threaten to leave millions of refugees across Africa without food. Unless urgent action is taken, acute malnutrition, stunting, and anemia are expected to rise. For example, in refugee camps in Ethiopia, 62% of the children have experienced critical levels of anemia. And today, the World Meteorological Organization said the annual mean global temperature is likely to be at least 1 degree Celsius above pre-industrial level in each of the coming 5 years. There's also a 20% chance that this temperature will exceed 1.5 in at least 1 year. That's according to the Global Annual Decade Climate Update. WMO warned that once again, the industrial economic slowdown from COVID-19 is not a substitute for sustained and coordinated climate action. That failure to tackle climate change may threaten our well-being ecosystems, economies for centuries. WMO added that the governments should use the opportunity to embrace climate action as part of a recovery program to ensure we grow back better. And on a musical note, our friends at UNICEF said today that members of the Marley family will reimagine the late Bob Marley's iconic anthem, One Love. The re-recording of the song will support UNICEF's Reimagine campaign, a global fundraising appeal to respond, recover, and reimagine a post-COVID-19 world for children. The new version of One Love will be released July 17th, and all proceeds from the songs and related activities will directly support UNICEF's global campaign. As you will all recall, the original song was recorded in 1977 by Bob Marley and the Wailers. And speaking of Bob Marley and the Wailers, tomorrow at 12:30 p.m., Rima Baza, the spokesperson of the President of the General Assembly, will be here to brief you and answer your questions. I'd like to say thank you for your patience. So if you still have the strength to ask questions, go ahead. James, I think you have one.
Yes, sorry. It was always a question for you, not for the previous briefing. Yes, it's about, you've mentioned it already, but it's about the cross-border Syria situation. You updated us on the situation until last night. Clearly, there has been developments in the last few minutes as well, with another vote, this time on a Russian amendment, which again didn't pass, only 2 in favour, Russia and China, 6 abstentions and 7 against, so it didn't get the 9 votes. And there is another new amendment by the co-pen holders, which is going to the voting procedure until 1 p.m. tomorrow, which will call for 2 border checkpoints for 6 months. So just to update you on that. And then my questions, and the first one is this: is the Secretary-General worried that time is running out, and as things stand, you'll be left with no border checkpoints to bring aid into Syria?
I mean, first of all, thanks for the update. Of course, we're concerned. We've been down this road before of last-minute discussions, negotiations. The Security Council is the master of its domain. The member states are negotiating, which is what they are meant to do. From our point, we have been very clear that the humanitarian needs in Syria remain incredibly high, and that we need increased cross-border, we need increased cross-line support. And any failure to extend the cross-border authorization would cut the UN operations currently underway. I mean, either we have the authority or we don't. Today we have it, and we hope that will continue in the weeks and months ahead. But for that, we are dependent on the Security Council and its members. Our position, the Secretary General's position, our humanitarian colleagues' position, has been very clear and unnuanced, I think.
For the point of clarification as we reach this critical moment, in the view of the Secretariat and of the Secretary General and of Mr. Lowcock and all his humanitarian experts, 1 border checkpoint operating into Syria alone would, in your view, be inadequate?
I'm not going to delve into the details of the negotiations. So I will leave it at that, and I will refer you back to our general, I think, very strong position.
Isn't it time, though, for you to delve into the details, given how urgent this is and what is at risk here? There are discussions. There's a way to communicate publicly, and there are ways to communicate privately, and contacts are being had at all levels. Majid, I think you had a question.
Yes, actually, I have thank you, Stéphane. I have a follow-up to James' question. And I hope you don't consider this a detail, because this is about, even if those two crossing were open, Bab al-Hawa and Bab al-Salam, according to the assessment of OCHA, the one that you know, is it enough to especially get the aid to northeast, which is another part of Syria that's in dire need, and the southern part of Syria?
Let me just answer as clearly as I can. We need more aid to go through the cross-border. We do not need less to go through, and I will leave it at that.
Are they enough, those two cross-border?
I've used the words that I can use, Majid. Iftikhar, please. Iftikhar, you need to turn on your mic. Go ahead. No, I can't hear you. Iftikhar, I can't. Oh, go ahead, Iftikhar. Go.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm sure the Secretary General has taken note of WHO's move to review its performance about how it dealt with COVID pandemic. My question is about how does the United Nations view Vice President Joe Biden's statement that he would cancel Donald Trump's withdrawal from the WHO?
Iftikhar, you have worked at the UN, and you've known me long enough that I will not dive in headfirst into the U.S. Political campaign, because when you dive in headfirst, there's usually no water. What I would just say is that we've always advocated for strong support and membership of the WHO, and I would also add that the move announced by the Director General of WHO, Dr. Tedros, this morning, I think sends a very strong message and is one that we are fully supportive of. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Thank you for all your patience. I'm going to get some lunch, and I hope you get the same. Take care.